And welcome to a special Halloween episode of Movie and TV Talk. With it being that spooky time of year, that means it's the perfect time for the genre of movies that I don't like and I don't dislike at this point. And I'm not that well versed in either, and that is horror movies. But I've seen some, like Nightmare on Elm Street and Saw, and a few others. And this time I decided to start down the path of the Friday the 13th movies. Therefore, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 3, and Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Let's get into it. At this point, I feel like it's kind of pointless going over the plot of these movies, because all four of these movies generally follow the same plot. Generally, it involves teenagers coming to Camp Crystal Lake or someplace near it, and then usually the teenagers start partying, and they get horny, and a bunch of them go have sex, and this is when usually the killing part starts. First movie, it's Jason's mom doing the killing, and then in subsequent movies, it is, of course, Jason himself doing the killing. Of course, the mother's motivation for her killing spree is because Jason drowned in the lake at Camp Crystal Lake, because the counselors were too busy having sex and no one was watching over Jason, so nobody was able to save him from drowning. Jason's motivation for his killing sprees is because of seeing his mother get beheaded, so now everyone else is evil? I don't know, slasher movies don't really have to have logic, I guess. Now, aside from these four movies being extremely campy and not at all scary, there are some interesting things that I have noticed in these movies. The first is that in parts 2, 3, and the final chapter, they all do these, like, stupidly long recaps of the previous movie. Like, I suppose at the time these movies came out, it was fine, because, you know, it could have been, like, a year or so since someone had watched one of the previous movies. So the long recaps are good for bringing people up to speed like that. But when watching these movies back to back like I did, it doesn't really do anything besides take up time. The next and probably biggest thing is the characters in all four of these movies. The characters are basically blank slates with very basic names also, and sometimes these names carry from one movie to another, like they just use the same six people, well, the same six names for people, but it's different people in the movies. Like, two of these movies had different characters named Paul in them, but they recycled the name Paul. These characters also, they have zero defining traits or characteristics to them that make me truly care about them when they get killed, which I think is an important thing in a movie. I think the kid in the final chapter was more of a character than all of the characters in all four of these movies. At most, these characters have, like, a one-note characteristic to them, like, that guy's the jokester, that guy's the smart one, that girl's the sassy one, and that's it. And it's not that great because I don't feel anything for these for any of the characters when they do end up getting killed. And I personally think that's something that would make things better in all four of these movies. Also related to the characters, well, none of the characters in these four movies are very attractive. They're not attractive at all. I think there was like one character out of all four I think there was one character out of all the characters in all four of these movies that was like decently attractive, but I'm talking like a 5 or 6 out of 10, and that's it. Pretty much all of the girls in these four movies, they have no chests, no asses, their hairstyles are stinking ugly, and the clothes that they wore were so bad looking. Ugh. Like, seriously, the one girl had like these white lacy underwear that also somehow looked like a diaper. I don't get it. And the guys are no better either. They have no abs. They don't have muscles. And I'm talking like a normal amount of muscles, not like bodybuilder level. And if you ask me, they ain't got nothing going on down there either, given that they're in small, tight swimsuits in several scenes. I don't get it. I really don't, because I assume that the filmmakers wanted people to be oogling the characters in the film, especially with, you know, having a lot of like beach scenes and scenes where people are getting completely naked. But it just doesn't do it for me. A lot of characters do not look like they should be the age that I assume they are supposed to be. Like, a lot of the characters look like they're 12 or 13 when I assume they're supposed to be 18 or older, and I just don't see it. These movies ultimately they're not bad. They're certainly not good either. They're classics for sure. There's so much that could have made them better. At the very least, having some characters that the viewer can actually get to know, care about, would be a huge step, because then there's more emotion in the viewer when they end up getting killed. In terms of like the attractiveness thing, I don't know what to tell you there. I mean, the 80s were the 80s, you know. I guess it depends on the reasoning. Oh my god. I guess it just depends on the reasoning behind the casting. Maybe they didn't want overly attractive girls. I don't know. But yeah. On the note of the hairstyle, the one that bothered me is like there was this one girl that like one side of her hair was curly, the other side was braided. Then like the top part would be straight until a point in the back where it was also curly, and it's like, what in the fuck is going on here? I just don't know, man. These movies, to me, they are just fun, silly movies to watch around Halloween, and that's really it. They aren't bad, they aren't good, but they're pretty dang fun, so you know, that's your kind of thing. I would say give them a watch. But that's all I have to say, so if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.